Imagine dropping out of college, getting sued by the government, and still becoming the richest man in the world. That's exactly what Bill Gates did. But his story isn't just about money. It's about genius-level strategy, ruthless business moves, and a mindset that made Microsoft unstoppable. This is how Bill Gates built an empire, and what we can learn from his insane journey. Bill Gates wasn't born into wealth, but he was born with an obsession for computers before the rest of the world even realized they mattered. Growing up in Seattle in the 60s, computers were the size of rooms, used only by governments and giant corporations. But at just 13 years old, Gates got his hands on one and never looked back. While other kids were outside playing, Gates was in front of a computer, coding for hours at a time. By high school, he was already running a small business selling software. He wasn't thinking about getting a job. He was thinking about how to take over an industry that barely even existed yet. But even with all that raw talent, Gates did what most kids with big futures do. He went to Harvard. Or at least he did for a little while. Because the truth is, Gates didn't care about getting a degree. He spent more time in the computer lab than in class. His roommate said it was normal to find Gates coding at 3 a.m., locked in, thinking about the future. Then, the moment that changed everything. In 1975, Gates saw something that no one else did. Personal computers were coming. Most people thought computers would always be massive machines only used by governments and giant companies. But Gates knew one day everyone would have one. So he made the biggest decision of his life. He dropped out of Harvard to start a company called Microsoft. People thought he was crazy. Harvard was the best university in the world. Why throw that away? But Gates didn't care. He saw an opportunity, and he wasn't about to waste time sitting in a classroom while someone else took it. And then, his first billion-dollar move. In 1980, IBM was the biggest name in computers. They were building personal computers for the first time. But they had one problem. They needed an operating system. Gates made them an offer. Microsoft would build their software. There was just one issue. Microsoft didn't even have an operating system. So Gates pulled off one of the most genius business deals ever. He bought an existing operating system from another company for $50,000, rebranded it as MS-DOS, and licensed it to IBM. Here's why this was genius. IBM didn't own the software. They just paid Microsoft every time they sold a computer. And suddenly, Microsoft wasn't just a company. It was the foundation of the entire computer industry. IBM computers ran on Microsoft. Other manufacturers ran on Microsoft. The whole world was slowly getting locked into Microsoft. Gates had trapped the competition without them even realizing it. By the 90s, Microsoft was no longer just successful, it was a monopoly. Windows was installed on 90% of computers worldwide. If you wanted a PC, you had to use Microsoft. There was no real competition. Gates played the business world like a chess game. He made aggressive deals, he crushed rivals, and he turned Microsoft into an empire. And then he got sued. In 1998, the US government accused Microsoft of being too powerful. They claimed Gates was illegally forcing companies to use Microsoft products. Gates was dragged into court. He had to testify in front of the entire world. Microsoft was at risk of being completely broken up. For most CEOs, this would be the end. But Gates didn't panic. Instead of fighting aggressively, he played the long game. He agreed to government regulations, restructured Microsoft, and walked away without losing control of his company. His net worth over $100 billion. And then, he did something no one expected. In 2008, Gates did something almost no billionaire ever does. He stepped down as CEO of Microsoft. He could have stayed at the top forever. He could have continued dominating tech. But instead, he started giving away his fortune. Through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, he began donating billions to fight diseases, improve education, and change the world in a completely different way. From ruthless businessman to world-changing philanthropist. So what made Bill Gates different from everyone else? He didn't just build a great company. He controlled an entire industry. Most businesses compete. Microsoft trapped the competition. Most billionaires hold on to power. Gates walked away and focused on something bigger. His playbook was simple. See the future before anyone else. Make the right business deals, not just great products. Play the long game. Always think 10 steps ahead. Love him or hate him, Bill Gates changed the world. What do you think was Gates' smartest move? Drop a comment below. And if you love success stories, hit that like button and subscribe to 3x3 Finance.